Good afternoon. My name is Michael Corrado. I'm a lifelong resident of Etobicoke and neighbor to Pearson Airport. I'm also a representative of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Transportation District Lodge 140. I'm an advocate with the Toronto Airport Workers Council, and I was an aircraft refueling serviceman from the spring of 1992 until September 30th, 2015 last year, when that critical safety and environmentally sensitive airport operation, had its contract unnecessarily flipped, throwing myself and hundreds of other experienced workers to the unemployment lines into the streets. I'm here today to address the issues of safety and security, which is, as Howard mentioned, the GTA's #1 mandate at this Canada's premier airport. How safety and security are negatively affected and compromised seemingly each and every time that a contract is flipped at this airport. Safety. You know, for decades, Pearson Airport ran effectively and efficiently on a model where the large majority of airport workers were experienced, with many years of reliable and dedicated service, and with relatively few workplace accidents. These experienced airport workers were relied upon by their respective employers to train, mentor, and pass along their wealth and workplace experience and knowledge to the relatively small percentage of new workers entering the industry. This model of experienced versus inexperienced workers served our airport community well and the traveling public well for years and for decades. Today, with the regular and growing amount of contract flips that occur at this airport, we are seeing a sudden and alarming change in the percentage of experienced and qualified workers versus new, inexperienced, and unqualified workers. This new model is almost a complete reversal of what it used to be, to the point where the growing number of airport workers are new, inexperienced, underqualified, and are quickly becoming the growing majority. The trend of having experienced and qualified worker training the new worker entering the industry has been replaced with new, inexperienced, and underqualified worker training the new worker entering the industry, or simply put, new hire training new hire. To complicate matters, and largely due to the regular contract flipping that goes on at this airport, the workers or the ambassadors to this airport are often paid close to minimum wage salaries, which means that many airport workers are forced to have 2 or even 3 jobs to earn enough money to live in the overly expensive Greater Toronto area. Airport ramp workers in this scenario regularly work an alarming number of hours to put food on the table, which poses obvious safety concerns. Most airport workers fall under the jurisdiction of the Canada Labour Code, and as such are subject to the maximum number of allowable hours in a work week. The code basically allows for employees to work a maximum of 48 hours averaged over a 2-week period. And when the law was enacted, it took safety concerns into consideration. Some employers will implement an averaging agreement that allows employees to work about 104 overtime hours quarterly or every 3 months. Hypothetically, this means that an airport worker could work 104 hours of overtime in a week or 2, which is unreasonable and not conducive to the running of a safe airport environment and likely violates AVOP rules and regulations. A recent Transport Canada investigation confirmed that although it is a legal requirement, some employers do not and have not kept track as to the number of hours that employees are allowed to work with the company.
I respect the fact that
Never mind 2 or 3 companies.
You have.
This is an annual general meeting.
It is, Cheryl.
You're putting us over.
I will get to the point.
And once a year to have a conversation.
This is not a speech, but a question, not a speech.
And
Anybody can make a speech.
And
I'm
I
getting to the
really
question,
do
sir.
respect your
We've
right
only
to
had-
speak.
we've only had 4
I would
questions.
just ask so that other people could also have an opportunity.
Put
We
your
might
hand up.
Get to a question. I really do respect your right to speak, but perhaps we can get to a question.
Okay, my question deals with You know, we've had, and Howard mentioned, we had a very unfortunate, a tragic accident here on April the 22nd. And this is not the first accident recently we've had of that nature. Back in August last year, we had another accident airside, a very serious one, which is eerily similar to the one that just took place a couple weeks ago. The previous accident in August was also, and I will use the word also, an airport employee with very little experience. In August, the Swissport worker had had passed his probationary period roughly about 4 or 5 months worth of seniority. Now the question I'm getting to deals with the ABOP program. The Swissport worker was allowed to work his job with an ABOP that he just acquired a few days earlier, although he did not have a security rate, which meant he had to be escorted from gate to gate, from location to location at that airport because he did not have a cleared rate. He was allowed to operate equipment airside, but had to be escorted. So the question I have for the airport authorities, the recommendation I have for the airport authorities, is I recommend that the GTAA follow suit and implement the system that is used at other airports, whereby the GTA will not issue an ABOP until the airport worker is in possession of a fully cleared rate. The issue I want to discuss about security at this airport as it relates to the contract living. You know, we all remember the events of 9/11, recent terrorist attacks in Brussels and other airports across the world. You know, for obvious reasons of national security, customer and community safety, rigorous background security checks are required of airport workers, especially those with access to security areas. Workers simply apply for airport jobs. They fill out the necessary security paperwork that is imposed through our government agencies like Transport and CSIS. And then the worker is simply allowed to work at the airport as long as he's being escorted by somebody with a clear pass. You know, this system of responsibility may have worked better when the airport community was largely made up of experienced folks, but today is increasingly becoming more of a security risk as the airport workforce is becoming more and more inexperienced. Each time a contract is flipped at this airport,
I'm gonna have to ask you to.
I'm almost to my question, I'm almost to the final question.
Okay.
Each time a contract is flipped at this airport, a significant percentage of employees are hired off the street and from outside of the industry. This further increases the growing number of airport workers that are allowed to work in secured areas of our airport without the necessary background checks being fully completed and finalized, without knowing whether the new airport worker has a criminal background, is involved in drug trafficking, is a member of a gang, or has terroristic ties or tendencies, and allowing them to work at our airports and in their security areas seems narrow-minded and does not seem to fit the safety and security mandate of the GTAA. I will skip through the rest of it and I will get to the point. In closing, I recommend to the GTAA that in the best interest of security, that they do not allow new workers to work in the security areas until their clearances have been fully processed, and that the GTAA become properly involved in the collection of rates when workers leave the industry, because that is another issue. Every time a contract is flipped, we have a high percentage of employees that are put out to the streets, and their security clearances and their rates have to be properly accounted for. It should be worth noting that police agencies can be involved in providing preliminary background checks, as is being contemplated and instituted at other airports across the country.
Can I make a proposal that perhaps we get together outside, we have a room set aside, we can hear those concerns, Cheryl?
Hillary is,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, we get one opportunity to talk about some real concerns that we have as airport workers
Yes.
every year. Just as everybody, I know everybody's time in here is valuable, because the man.
I recognize this, and so perhaps what I would propose is that we take the opportunity to have a deeper discussion after this meeting, not taking away from many of the folks here who have additional questions, but I think you have a point of view that you'd like to express in more detail.
I was discussing and bringing to the attention of safety and security, which is GTA's #1 mandate.
Okay.
And the very last thing I will say, and then I will let somebody else take the microphone, is I would like to formally surrender and return my security rate from my last employer at Pearson that had their contract flipped last year to ensure that it is properly accounted for. So you let me know which corporate security person I need to hand that into, and I will.